had always heard about those videos on YouTube, about people supposedly buying mystery boxes off the dark web. Whether they were true or not, I still found it fascinating. So one day, I decided to finally buy one and see if they were worth all the hype or not. Even though I'd been going through the dark web for a while, this would actually be the first time I'd be purchasing something. Through some recommendations, I found a site that sold some of these mystery boxes. How they obtained them, I have no idea, but the prices were surprisingly low. I'm guessing that a lot of these people involved just loved gathering and making this stuff like it was a hobby. Even though I almost backed out, I eventually ordered one. After a few weeks, a package without a return address finally arrived at my door. At first, I was hesitant to open it, but after a little bit of alcohol, I finally gathered the courage to do so. Inside of the brown shipping box was a smaller box. I used my pocket knife to cut through all the tape it was wrapped in. My gut instinct was telling me this might not be a good idea, but my morbid curiosity was just too much to ignore. I took a deep breath before finally taking a look inside. Right from the start, I was hit with a strong scent of pine. I was confused at first, but soon realized it was due to all the car fresheners scattered inside. Weird, I thought, but I quickly threw them to the side. Next thing I saw was a keychain of a plastic toy rabbit. It was so cute, I actually wasted no time hooking it to my keys. When I looked back in the box, that's when I noticed the purse. I was kind of surprised when it was one of the purses that I knew must have cost more than I paid for the mystery box itself. Maybe it was a knockoff, I told myself. After setting it aside, I continued digging into the box, but what I saw next started to give me an uneasy feeling. At first, I didn't know what it was, but after a bit of unfolding, I realized it was a pair of latex gloves. And all over them was some kind of dark brown substance that had turned into crust. This could be anything, I thought to myself. However, the smell it gave off was that of rust. Just like the other items, I put them aside as well, but at this point, I started to get a bit concerned. I had no intention of stopping though. The next thing I saw was a layer of fabric. Upon inspecting it, I could feel something inside. After unfolding, I realized what it was. A lock of blonde hair tied together with a ribbon. The feeling of something being wrong was now getting stronger and stronger, but a part of me kept trying to convince myself that this was just a prank. I was just way too curious to see the rest of the contents of the box. I took out another layer of fabric, and that's when I saw it. There, laying on a towel, was a large kitchen knife. Its blade was heavily stained with the same brown substance that had crusted over the latex gloves. The smell of iron was overwhelming. By this stage, I knew exactly where this was going. If this was a prank, it was a convincing one, and really messed up. This could just be animal blood, I thought to myself. However, if this isn't a prank, the next thing I might see might be something I'm not prepared for. Convincing myself that it could all just be a prank, I held my breath and uncovered the last layer. Relief and confusion came over me as I didn't see anything instantly concerning. However, there at the bottom of the box was a case with a DVD. And upon looking at it closely, I noticed that it's labeled, "Watch Me." No freaking way, I thought to myself. Even if this was a prank, I was still too scared to watch what could possibly be on that DVD. But even though every fiber of my being told me to stop, I couldn't. I had to find out how this prank, if it was a prank, ended. I took another swig of my beer and forced myself to put the DVD inside my computer. Even though I was shaking at the thought of what I was about to see, I eventually pressed play. What I saw next is something I will never forget. Sitting, tied to a chair, was a woman inside a dark room that looked like a basement. She had blonde hair, and even though her blonde hair covered a lot of her face, I could tell her eyes were swollen from crying. Duct tape covered her mouth, but I could hear her crying through it. As horrified as I was, I couldn't help but continue to watch. It wasn't more than a few seconds later that a masked man appeared on the screen. And in one of his hands was a large kitchen knife that looked similar to the one from the box. I watched in horror as he raised the knife to her hair and cut a piece off. He then tied it together with a ribbon before putting it in his pocket. "This is all just a prank," I kept muttering to myself. But just as I started second-guessing watching the rest of the video, that's when I saw the masked man take the knife and place it on top of the woman's index finger. I could see her finger with the pink fingernail trembling from fear. My stomach dropped at the thought about what he was about to do, and before I knew it, he proceeded to slice her finger off. I could hear her muffled screams of pain as the masked man eventually severed her finger. That looked too real, I told myself, horrified. And before I could even shut off the video, that's when the masked man quickly took his knife and sunk it into the woman's stomach. I gasped as I jumped out of my chair, but the horror didn't stop. He then proceeded to cut her belly open as she squirmed in the chair. And by the time he had cut her torso from one side to the other, her intestines had spilled out over her legs. I quickly turned the video off, but by then it was too late. I had seen more than I wanted to. My heart was thumping so hard by that point that I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I also felt like I was going to throw up and faint from shock. But even after seeing all that, I was still trying to convince myself it could still be a prank. And even on the chance it was real, I had no intention of finding out. I quickly took the box and all of the contents over to a forest nearby and burned it. In the chance it was real, I didn't want to be caught in possession of what could be evidence. I especially didn't want to be caught with a possible murder weapon. But after burying all the items, I was still paranoid for the next few days. What if the person or people responsible for sending me the mystery box paid me a visit? What if they called the cops on me? I was such a mess that I started to drink more than usual, but after a week had passed, I started to calm down a little. However, I still continued to drink to take the edge off. Unfortunately, while out on the drive, I was pulled over by a cop. He told me he had noticed I was driving kind of erratically, and after taking a breathalyzer test, it was determined that I was a little over the alcohol limit. But since I was driving in the middle of nowhere and no priors, the cop decided to give me a break. Since my house was just a few blocks away, he had escorted me just to make sure I got home safely. But just as he was about to hand me back my keys, he noticed a strange smell coming from it. Both of us were confused as to what could be causing the smell. That's when the cop noticed the bottom of the toy looked like it had been cut open and sealed. After poking at it with the knife, he was eventually able to open it and shake something loose from within. As the object fell into his other hand, we both looked on in horror as we realized what it was. There, in his palm, was the severed, rotting finger of a woman with a pink fingernail.